Hey, Pastor, it's Richard Chancey with 24 to Double. I got a question for you today, Pastor. What's more important, getting Jesus in or getting the sin out? This question actually comes from my date with my daughter this morning. We do a date every Tuesday morning where we talk about life and what's going on at school and what I'm learning in the Bible. And today she started asking questions about one of her friends. She's got a friend that she works with. The friend's doing a lot of things she shouldn't be doing, drinking, her relationship with a boyfriend, those kind of things. And Jordan's like, hey, how do I convince her to start living in a better way? Now, this girl's not a believer. And we had a great conversation. And I said, hey, don't focus on the sin. Focus on what can you do to make it more inviting for this girl to begin a relationship with Jesus. And that got me thinking about this today. Hopefully we're all answering the question the same way, that Jesus in is definitely the answer. Sin out is like trying to bail water out of a boat while the boat has a huge hole in it. You and I both know it doesn't matter how fast you bail, sooner or later you're going to get tired and you're going to lose ground. That's what sin maintenance is all about. In fact, I believe that there's an enemy that convinces us, if we can just be a little bit better, that God will be proud of us. Whereas with Jesus in, getting Jesus in, when you get Jesus in, you realize that the point isn't even about sin. The point is about relationship with Jesus. And relationship with Jesus, when you're trying to get Jesus in, what I think we find is Jesus takes care of the sin. And I think that's important because we as believers, we as the church, we as the people that are excited about the next generation of the church and reaching the next generation, we have to find more ways to get Jesus in. Now, people tend to move towards acceptance and away from rejection. The reason that's important for us as we're out trying to reach people who are far from God, but literally right outside the doors of our church, the reason it's so important is because we have to create environments that are accepting. Because I don't know if you've thought about this in a while. I grew up in church. I've been there. If it's Sunday, we go to church. I don't think about what happens when somebody comes to church for the very first time. Pastor, do you think about that? Do you ever just take time to think about what happens when somebody that's not a believer or they're de-churched come to church for the first time? You know, I've talked about this on live streams before, the amount of effort that it takes to get somebody to church for the first time. Usually there's a friend involved. More than 80% of people that come to church for the first time were invited. So you got that whole process of building a relationship and then risking the change in your pocket to get people to show up to church for the first time. And then what happens? Well, they drive onto our campus. They don't know where to go. They come through the door. There's somebody strange, but very, hopefully most of the time, they're very excited to see you there. And then they walk in, and if we're not careful, the engagement stops after the front door. They come in, they sit down. Somebody gives them a weird look because they're sitting in their seat, but the new person doesn't know that they're sitting in that person's seat. They don't understand how the rules work. We're raising our hands, or we're clapping, or we're singing songs from that were recorded a year ago or 200 years ago. Worship style doesn't matter. The bottom line is it's still weird, right? And think about why people aren't in church. I'm in the South. If people don't go to church in the South, it's because they've been, right? It's not like they don't know who Jesus is. They haven't had exposure to church. People don't go to church in the South because they've been to church. People anywhere else don't go to church because of what they know about us from TV and from, which is news and also media. More and more we're seeing the bad guy in the series that's going on Netflix. The bad guy's a Christian, and he's a hyper fundamentalist Christian that wants to kill people because they don't believe what he believes in. That stuff is really happening. So it's seeding the market of people to say Christians are weird. So think about all that effort we get them there. And then what happens when they get there? They have this kind of weird experience. And I think our job is I've coined this phrase, is to de-weirdify it. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. But the big thing that we're after right here is just to make people feel accepted, and don't do anything to make them feel rejected. There's a lot that we could go into right there. I could give you some examples, but here's the thing, Pastor. You're going to come up with better ways to answer that question than I would. What is it that makes people feel accepted in your church? What makes them feel like they're not? Rejected may be a strong term, but if you're not making people feel accepted, I promise you they are feeling rejected. It's so easy to happen now. So here's what you do with this, or how you mitigate that feeling in people. You have to think through the how part. Here's the cool thing, Pastor. I'm going to challenge you not to be the one that thinks about how. There's somebody in your church that's process oriented. There's somebody that thinks about systems. They live their life doing that. They make their living thinking about, okay, if we're trying to make people feel accepted, here's all the things that we can do. Okay, let's do away with 80% of those and do the top 20% of these things that are going to truly make people feel accepted when they come back to come for the first time. They're looking at what happens before they come. So if you invite somebody, how do you invite people? Where are you sending them to? How do you get them excited about coming to church? Because when you invite somebody, there has to be a because, right? You can't just go, hey, why don't you come to church Sunday? Oh, great. What's going on? No reason. Just come. That's not how it works. There has to be a because before they get there. When they're there, how do you make them feel accepted? When they leave, not following up with them is a way of rejecting people. So how do you make them feel accepted even after they leave? Thinking through all those things. Now, the cool thing is, Pastor, you're not the one to do this. God has called you to do a very specific few things in your church. This is probably not one of them for a couple reasons. It's not your calling. It's not your gifting. And so somebody else can absolutely be better at it. And if you decide to do this instead of finding somebody that's the who that can figure out the how, you're stealing the ministry opportunity for them. There, I said it. Okay. Don't steal other people's ministry opportunities by doing it for them, Pastor. Okay. Hey, if you want help with this, we have got at 24 to Double is 24 to Double is a 2-year whole church discipleship model. We'll walk you step by step through how to build 7 teams to double your church in just 2 years. Now, those 7 teams include an outreach team, the worship arts and the engagement team, the WOW team that makes people feel accepted when they're in your church, and then the follow-up team that does nothing but think about what do we do after people show up. Pastor, about 6 to 8% of people are retained from first-time visitors. Nationwide, those are the numbers, 6 to 8%. That's terrible. That means if 100 people come to your church, at best, we're only getting 8% of them to come back. We got to do better than that. We got to plug the hole in the boat, Pastor. And we feel like at 24 to Double, we want to partner with you to do that. We've got a way for you to do that. Over the last few years, we've partnered with almost 3,500 churches in 23 countries with this program, and you can check it out right now. We're going to give you a bunch of free sermon series just for kicking the tires. You'll get access to our free gifts and passions test, and you can try it for 15 days for just $7. Check it out. And if you have any questions, let us know. You can reach us at support@24todouble.com. Thanks, Pastor. I'll catch you tomorrow on the live stream.